Gather round, folks, for tonight by this flickering campfire, I'll recount the tale of Socrates, the gadfly of Athens, whose life and ideas set the very foundation of Western philosophy. It's a story not of battles or kingdoms, but of a man's unyielding quest for truth in the bustling streets and shadowed corners of ancient Athens. Imagine Athens in its golden age, the city-state at the height of its power, bursting with culture, politics, and the earliest ideas that would shape the modern world. Into this world, around 470 BC, was born Socrates, not a noble, but a common man, son of a stonemason and a midwife. From these humble beginnings rose a thinker who would challenge the very essence of knowledge and virtue. Socrates, with his snub nose and stocky figure, was no sculpted Athenian ideal. He walked the streets barefoot, clad in a simple robe, engaging anyone who would listen in relentless pursuit of truth. Picture him in the agora, the bustling marketplace, questioning the supposed wisdom of poets, politicians, and artisans. His method? A relentless form of questioning now known as the Socratic method, designed to stimulate critical thinking and to illuminate ideas. Yet Socrates wrote nothing down. His words and ideas come to us through the writings of his students, like Plato, who painted a portrait of a man devoted to questioning all conventions. Socrates' dialogues weren't just idle chatter. They were profound, probing, and often led to discomfort. He famously declared, "I know that I know nothing," a paradox that invited one to explore deeper philosophical truths. His style wasn't to lecture, but to engage in dialogue, to peel away layers of assumption and reveal the ignorance thought to be knowledge. This approach drew many young followers who admired his courage to challenge authority and traditional beliefs. However, it also earned the disdain of many powerful Athenians who felt threatened by his critiques of their society and governance. Now picture the political climate of Athens, a democracy that had just survived the upheaval of war and tyranny. In this fragile context, Socrates' incessant questioning of authority and his growing influence among the youth were viewed with suspicion and increasing alarm. His close associations with figures like Alcibiades, who betrayed Athens, and Critias, a leader of the brutal 30 tyrants, only fueled the fire. The climax of our tale comes in 399 BC, when Socrates, now an old man, was brought before the people of Athens on charges of corrupting the youth and impiety, specifically failing to acknowledge the gods of the city and introducing new deities. During his trial, as recounted by Plato in the Apology, Socrates offered a spirited defense of his life's work, asserting that his questioning was a form of service to the city given by the oracle at Delphi. Imagine Socrates standing before his accusers, unyielding in his stance that he would rather suffer death than give up his mission to stir Athens from its moral slumber. He was offered chances to escape, to live in exile, but he chose to stay true to his principles, accepting the jury's sentence of death rather than compromise his beliefs. As we near the end of our tale, we find Socrates in his final hours, surrounded by his distraught followers. He spends these last moments not in sorrow, but in calm discussion of the soul's immortality, illustrating his firm belief in the philosophical ideals he taught. His death by hemlock was not just the end of a man, but the beginning of a legacy that would inspire countless generations. Socrates' story, friends, is not merely an ancient historical account. It's a profound reminder of the courage it takes to live a life dedicated to truth and introspection. As we sit here under the stars, let his life inspire us to question, to seek out our own truths, and to live with integrity in the face of societal pressures. So here's to Socrates, the stonemason's son who dared to challenge the mightiest, and in doing so, taught us the value of the examined life. Cheers to the wisdom of Socrates. As the flames dance and crackle, let's delve deeper into the enduring legacy of Socrates, a legacy that didn't just influence his contemporaries, but shaped the very bedrock of philosophical thought for centuries to come. After the death of Socrates, his pupils, notably Plato, carried forward the torch of his teachings. Picture Plato, Socrates' most distinguished student, who transformed the often informal and spontaneous street philosophies of his mentor into something more structured and enduring. Plato founded the Academy, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. It was there, under the shadow of his master's memory, that Plato penned some of the most profound philosophical texts in history, dialogues that were deeply influenced by the methods and convictions of Socrates. Plato's works give us the clearest picture of Socrates' methods and ideas through dialogues like the Republic, Phaedo, and Symposium. Socrates is depicted engaging in deep, insightful discussions about justice, virtue, and the ideal state. These texts are not just philosophical arguments, but are literary masterpieces that present Socrates as a figure of moral authority and intellectual rigor. Now, imagine how Socrates' ideas rippled out beyond Athens. His dialectical method laid the groundwork for what would become the scientific method, a way of understanding the world that insists on questioning and empirical evidence rather than reliance on dogma. Socrates' emphasis on questioning authority and the established norms laid the intellectual foundations for democratic discourse, encouraging citizens to think critically about ethics and politics. Furthermore, Socrates' death became a powerful narrative about the martyrdom for truth and intellectual freedom. His choice to accept the hemlock rather than recant his ideas inspired future generations to value truth over compliance. This narrative of Socrates as a martyr has echoed through time, influencing not just philosophers, but also political thinkers and leaders who value principles over life itself. Centuries later, during the Renaissance, a rebirth of interest in classical antiquities brought Socrates back into the spotlight. Thinkers of this era saw in Socrates a model for humanist principles, his life and teachings a beacon of reason and independent thought in the face of religious and political tyranny. Fast forward to modern times, the Socratic method of questioning to elicit deeper thinking and illuminate ideas is still a cornerstone of contemporary education, especially in law schools and educational discussions aimed at fostering critical thinking. His ideas about the nature of knowledge and ethics continue to resonate, challenging us to explore not just what we believe, but why we believe it. As we sit here tonight, let's reflect on the dialogue Socrates might have appreciated, a dialogue between past and present, asking us to engage with the world thoughtfully and examine our lives critically. His questioning, his unrelenting pursuit of truth, and his dedication to living a life worth examining continue to inspire us to seek our own understanding of virtue and justice. So, as our campfire dwindles to glowing embers, let us carry forward the spirit of Socrates. Let's hold on to the courage to question, the strength to speak truth to power, and the wisdom to know ourselves deeply. Here's to Socrates, whose voice, though millennia old, still challenges and enlightens us. Cheers to the timeless wisdom of Socrates,